Ladies and gentlemen, it's Spoilerin time. And folks, this is the show where all that hard work we do on our other show, Cordkillers, pays off. We get to watch cool stuff and then spoil it for you. So hopefully you've seen it. We do let you know what we're going to talk about. So this time, it's episode 6 of season 1 of Deadwood, the first episode of season 1 of Counterpart, the series premiere of Counterpart. I'm Tom Merritt, and of course, joining me is Brian Brushwood.
Yeah, man, and more importantly, we're going to check in with the winners. We'll announce the official winners of this year's movie draft.
Ladies and gentlemen, bring yourselves to your feet and give us a round of applause for Justin Roger Young and Brittany Rounceville.
Oh, I just want to soak it in. Could you say my name again, but maybe right this time?
Yeah, Jason, Robbie Young, and Brett Rounceville.
Oh, it was close. All right.
Yeah.
Man, what a ride, right, guys?
My team was called Team Jury. What was your guys' team's name?
Our team was Team Champions because we are previous champions of the movie draft.
Yeah,
Oh,
and you were previously just jury.
Yeah.
Not like any time recently.
Not like how we're the champions.
Like right now.
Currently.
So now that you're champions, Brett, are you upset at jury for not including your name in the title of the team?
I'm actually the U in jury. I don't know. I don't know if that's been
The
spread.
U stands for.
We actually had a real team name until we came up with the masked man thing in the beginning, and we didn't want to tip our hand with who his partner was.
Yeah.
And then it kind of got locked into Team Jury, and I've been sitting out on the stoop ever since.
Exactly. Yeah. No, we were supposed to be Team Fairyland.
Yeah.
Because
of Oakland's famous children's
Oakland's
fairyland.
own fairyland, home of Frank Oz.
The inspiration for Disneyland.
We are not interested in creating a false narrative. We'll tell the truth. You guys played the exact same type of game we were trying to play. You just did better at it than we did. Do you feel like there was any so in our case,
and if people don't know, $730 million for Team Jury. Number 2, Team Cordkillers, Malango and Christie, $590 million. Team Frog Pants, with the movie everyone thought would win this, $513 million.
Yeah. So in our case, we went for as many movies as we can, figuring one of them would be a hit. We thought that the Lego Ninjago movie might be one of them. Flatliners, I don't think we were terribly hopeful of, but we thought it would be a good base hit. The Snowman, Jigsaw. Jigsaw seems like a solid base hit. A Bad Mom's Christmas, maybe a blowaway sequel. Daddy's Home 2, same thing. Murder on the Orient Express, kind of a wild card. Pitch Perfect 3, the third in a franchise, seemed like it would return. All of them did garbage money. Whereas you guys, playing the same type of strategy with American-made Happy Death Day, which did better than expected, The Foreigner, Tyler Perry's Boo 2, A Medea Halloween, Coco killed it, Jumanji crushed everything. Jumanji was your moneymaker.
I think we could have ended up with just Jumanji and Coco and still would have come in second place.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the big difference was,
we're better at it for one.
Number one, we're very good at the game.
Yeah,
so that helped.
I mean, that's an important point we should not gloss over.
Shouldn't gloss over. Well, as you guys know, the biggest issue that you want to make sure that you get is try to get value picks or things that just overperform based on what you could find. And the one thing that I would say that took any kind of skill was that I did really like Jumanji coming into the draft. It was one of those that I thought was like a good value. It will overperform kind of pick just because.
But $316 million overperform?
Oh, no. We thought it would overperform in that, like, hey, if we can spend $20 on that, it'll probably make 200.
I mean, like literally because that movie came out so late, I thought we were done. I mean, nobody really, including us, gave us much of a shot. And then Jumanji just kept making money and kept making money in the.
It was number 1 in the box office last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like even after opening weekend, when it was still going head to head with Jedi, I thought like, oh, we have a solid shot at second, guys.
Yeah.
I think we can pull out second.
Well, no, because initially I think even Movie Draft Mike in his recap was like, well, it's going to be really sad when Jumanji overperforms just enough for them to be in second place and wondering what would have happened if Molly's Game had come out earlier, which it had gotten bumped. So, I think that's where we thought we were at. And then, holy crap, man, Jumanji. Just Jumanji the crap out of life.
Yeah. So Coco too. Coco was your Lego Ninjago movie, except Coco did well.
Delivered, yeah.
Right? And then Jumanji just killed. That's insane.
So Justin, I remember that before we had decided how we were going to handle outlier movies that had the potential to make over 100% profits and become, all in. Forgive me if I'm not remembering all the details, but I seem to remember basically you felt like, well, there just has to be a Star Wars rule from now on. In a post-2017 world where Star Wars sold for 100%, it went for 85%. But even if you had 100% of the money, Trey Warren in the chat points out that Star Wars still wouldn't have won you the draft. Do you think that says more about this particular movie or about the stabilization in general?
I think that it's more just about how movie grosses have gone. I mean, we saw during the summer draft that there really is no longer this era. The land of the giants just kind of doesn't exist. And so the conventional wisdom going into this was that, okay, well, all the other movies won't do as well, but if there is one franchise that still operates under the old rules of Hollywood, it's Star Wars. As we saw, the first one came out and did gangbusters and was the #1 domestic of all time. So that was just, it proven that even Star Wars, and granted, a $600 million movie is nothing to scoff at, but I think you're right. I think the era of anybody wanting to go 100% for a lesser percentage is probably over.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of Star Wars specific stuff going on there too, though, in that like the first Star Wars movie, The Force Awakens, first modern Star Wars movie, had a lot of pin-up demand. Yeah. And once that's met, the people aren't going to come out in the droves that they did that time. I mean, that said, I feel like it was still a coin toss from our perspective going in. Like, for all we knew, that could have been $1 billion movie.
Sure.
At the beginning.
I think that there's plenty of conventional wisdom to say it. I mean, look, here's the biggest thing, and Ryu Plain Walker points it out down there. The fact that Jumanji outperformed Justice League, which, in case anybody is not aware, features Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, The Flash.
Well, hold on. Jumanji outperformed Thor Ragnarok.
Not only did Thor outperform, but the third movie in a Thor franchise, Thor, the man no one outside of comic books had heard of 6 years ago, outperformed Justice League.
Sure. I think that's probably the biggest underperform. I mean, that to me is as big of an indictment to quality, quality to gross, than anything.
So J.C. Calhoun in the chat points out that the Chat Realm League winner crashed the system. Yes, had Jumanji. Yes, had Coco. Outside of that, as he put it, pretty much garbage movies, including Ninjago movie, Battle of the Sexes, Geostorm, The Snowman, Murder on the Orient Express, Wonder. I mean, not that they're garbage artistically, but that they're box office, not blue chips.
Well, Wonder was number one for price.
That's true. Correct. I guess a lot of unexpected fringe candidates. Yeah. None of the obvious ones in there, I guess, is my point.
I thought what was interesting, I don't think this necessarily plays to us being great at this game, which we are. I mean, again, we shouldn't gloss over that. But I don't think this is necessarily specific to that. What is interesting is that we would have even been in the top 25 of the Chat Realm League.
With our
actual pick. Without the benefit of being able to cherry pick the good value buys afterwards. Yeah. I'm not saying that makes us great at this game.
Or the greatest ever.
Right. That's an independent measure.
That's not for us to decide.
But it is an interesting statistical point.
Yeah.
Well, you lost me there somewhere, but I'll just agree.
Unfortunately, the connection's starting to break up. I think they're out of time. They've got like a charity ball to go.
Hey, no, seriously, before we let you guys go, this was my wife's first year with doing the slate. Yeah. In retrospect, how did you feel about the slate? Because the slate is always different ahead of time, no matter who does it, than it feels like afterwards once you know what came out and how well it did.
There's always, every season, some pain point when we start getting the tweets of somebody saying, idiots, why don't you have blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, because we don't.
It's always a cartoon. It's always like Garfield
Ferdinand
gets a job. Yeah, or Ferdinand.
Yeah.
The John Cena's a bull movie.
Here's why I don't mind that, though. I think it's worth it to have those movies that are those sleeper hits that might overperform, like Wonder or something in there. And if you have to kick out Ferdinand to get a Wonder or two just to see if that changes things without knowing what's coming.
Which, by the way, Ferdinand was a flop. So
Ferdinand ate it. Boom.
Yeah. I mean, flop in that it still
ran right into that red cape,
which is more than a lot of the other movies.
Ferdinand?
Yeah.
Ferdinand made $100 million?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
All right, hold on.
It's a flop in our hearts.
Google a clock now.
Ferdinand
well, Pitch Perfect 3 was also
million.
a flop at $100 million. So
yeah.
Ferdinand made $200 million?
No, 79.
Oh, maybe there's this
That
Google
must be
thing.
global.
Yeah, it's
worldwide,
global.
maybe. Worldwide.
Oh, right. In your face.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks, you guys, and congratulations.
Yeah, dude. Now it's time for
Okay, no, let me ask you guys. So, what was your biggest surprise this season?
No, we said congratulations.
To be honest, the biggest surprise was that anybody could beat the Last Jedi. There was that moment when I was just like, well, this will be an odd year. That's fine. I'm not going to be pouty about it. And instead, justice prevailed, and you guys were the bannermen of that justice.
Yeah, my big surprise was Jumanji. I suspected that Last Jedi could be beaten. We wouldn't have had our slate the way it was otherwise. But I did not expect Jumanji to do well against Last Jedi. I did not expect Jumanji to do well because it was a sequel to Jumanji. I'm like, it'll do okay. It's got Dwayne Johnson, but 313 million blows me away. That shocked me.
I want to change my answer now because I actually think the biggest surprise for me was that Jedi did as poorly as it did. Not that it did poorly, 600 million, but money.
Substantially below our.
Jedi came out that I was like, oh no, Jedi wins the league. This isn't even all that fun. We're fighting for second place.
I walked out of Jedi.
Yeah.
Like my phone died right before the movie. I walked out of Jedi thinking like, that's exactly the movie. I've always said a great Star Wars movie will make infinite money. That's the greatest Star Wars movie I can remember in recent memory. It's so amazing. And then I turned on my phone and saw the portal to hell that had opened up like over the previous several hours. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe this won't be beloved. But I thought it was done even after I saw it. I was like, dude, this is a wrap.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen.
Well, congratulations, guys.
Get ready for our 4-hour telethon. Who's great? These guys. We'll be keeping the light on for you.
All right, so but you're teaming up again, I'd assume, right?
Maybe under a different name.
Yeah, maybe we change the name.
Although we've got the Summer League, and I believe traditionally it's back to Justin and I as Team Night Attack.
Look who wants to back on his team.
Weird.
Look who comes crawling back.
That's true. I've never won a movie draft with Brian as my partner.
All right, you know what? Maybe we got some drama here. Maybe
Brett is the real, Brett might be the greatest player in movie draft history. Like, if you actually look break down all of our solo play.
Stop.
Just stop. I'd be happy to have Brett on my team. That's great.
I'm in, as long as we're not team
I
HD Tech.
Know that I could handle. I don't know that I could handle the ego-depleting loss of if Justin and I, if I'm the common denominator in losing twice.
We're the only one. The only one without a win as we shuffle partners.
It's like playing the saddest game of
It would make me feel that much better if it's like, I can win with Brett. I can't win with anybody else. All right. Well, thanks, you guys. Appreciate it.
See you later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Oh, man. Right. Tom, I'm afraid, just FYI, podcast listeners who have been listening to me bloviate for 6 hours straight have probably figured out that I'm clearly fighting something. So we'll have to pick up the pace here for the rest of this.
Yeah, we may have to expedite. I don't have a lot to say about Counterpart yet, except that, and here we are moving into Counterpart. Super excited about this show. I thought it looked interesting. Love J.K. Simmons. I'm like, yeah, I'll give it a whirl. I'm way into it now. The parallels to East Germany and West Germany being split, and we have this split reality. The fact that it split in 1988, so I'm very intrigued to learn more about what's happening on the other side. Maybe the Berlin Wall didn't come down. because the Berlin Wall doesn't come down until 1989. The fact that you get to see the greatest performance from J.K. Simmons I think I've ever seen, where he can be both his kinds. I've seen him play both these characters, and now he gets to play both these characters. And on top of that, based on the fact that these are the actual same person up until 1988, so there's no nature nurture. They had the same childhood, they had the same experiences, and in adulthood, they got split. And it's an exploration of like, what is it that changes our lives? Is it just one decision that can make us into the badass secret agent or the kind of humble interface guy who just can't ever get ahead?
Yeah, somebody, when I tweeted out about it, two things happened. Number one, I asked, man, Counterpart looks amazing, but do I really want to sign up for Stars another time? And then in parentheses, I was like, no, seriously, should I? One of the responses was the showrunner of Counterpart, who said to me, all caps, yes, you should. And so it turns out he's from Austin, so it'd be awesome if I got to Justin Marks, that's his name. But also a bunch of people were like, yeah, I don't know, I'm sort of over the whole split reality thing. I will cede that point. It is not a fresh premise, the idea of split realities or whatever. However, I would encourage you to watch it, not because that's a new idea, but because you get to see J.K. Simmons, one of the greatest actors of our time, doing what he does the best. And it is hypnotic and wonderful. And the world is very, very sparse. The sets are very, very sparse. Feels a little bit like a play almost. I mean, it's very tightly focused. You know there's a bigger world out there. You're not concerned with it. You're concerned with J.K. Simmons' story, and he is absolutely extraordinary at every point during this. Forgive me for not totally remembering, because I watched this right before bed last night, but the ending... from the direction, it looked like there was some significance to the woman who was with J.K. Simmons. Is that his wife from the other side? Is that what's going on? Okay.
No, that is basically the implication is alternate Howard or Howard Prime lied when he said that his wife died from cancer.
Right.
She didn't. She's alive. And I can't tell from this interaction if they're still together, because she's very skeptical, or she's skeptical because she just discovered that he was going over to the other side. So many questions about that. But yeah, that
it wasn't a lack of me not paying attention or whatever. It was like I realized, like, I feel like from this direction I'm supposed to recognize that as her wife, but then I realized the only other time I see her is with, tubes and crap all over her face. So it didn't instantly.
Well, but they showed the
photo
picture of her, the photo of her.
Still didn't.
Right then, it's like the photo of her and her. Like that's how I put it together.
Maybe I have face blindness.
That's definitely her.
Maybe I have face blindness. That's what's going on. But regardless, I did understand that that's what I was supposed to realize, even though I didn't really see it because I'm bad with faces. Bryce, how did you enjoy this?
I liked it. I didn't. I kind of was expecting something a little less ethereal, something with a little more meat, a little more detail.
Sure.
Out of the beginning, and it's the first episode, so it's okay to keep that stuff pretty nebulous. But I did enjoy it. I would really like to get more world building and lore out of this split and what happened.
This is interesting. Answers. This is interesting because as you're saying this, I'm seeing Tom vehemently shake his head like, no, he doesn't.
No, the brilliance of this, because what Brian said is a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm done with alternate realities. That's what's brilliant about this, is the story is not about the alternate realities. And yes, Bryce, I am absolutely intrigued to find out more about what's going on the other side, but I love that this story is like, this isn't the man in the high castle.
Well,
we're not trying to show you how different it is.
Sure.
And in fact, Justin Marks has even said himself, like, we don't want you to be confused about which reality we're in. We're not trying to highlight that. When we're in the other reality, in the prime reality, you're going to have LED lights. You're going to have different kinds of phones. There's going to be tip-offs because there is a different world. but we're not trying to make it so different. We're not trying to be like, oh my gosh, it's crazy bizarro world over there. And I love that.
Yeah, I mostly bring it up because I also think that the spy action element was also equally nebulous, of like, they're the bad guys from the other side and they're killing people. And I expect that to be resolved. And until that starts making progress to that, I don't know. I think I want to fill in the rest of this because I think the two are at least on some level linked. So I don't know.
I guess if there's one thing to read into the significance of that last scene, it's that, you spend the entire movie pretty clearly being told, or at least being set up to expect there's good J.K. Simmons and quote unquote bad boy J.K. Simmons or whatever. But that last scene does introduce the possibility that there's quite simply ignorant J.K. Simmons and world weary J.K. Simmons who is doing ignorant J.K. Simmons a favor by lying about like he's like, well, I know me, and I know that if I knew my wife didn't have cancer on the other side,
you'd want to see her.
Let me spare that to myself by telling him that she's dead. And
that's
so
a perfectly valid way of looking that I hadn't thought of, because what I looked at it as is, oh, we have been led to believe that these are both good Howards. Just the Howard Prime is sort of reckless overachiever who's trying to help out to stop this killer. And then when we go back to his reality, turns out he's a liar. And I started to wonder, well, what else has he been lying about? Can we trust him? What's going on? Why wouldn't he talk about his wife? Because if he's lying to Howard, or regular Howard, about it, wouldn't he be lying to the other people on the other side about it? And so I thought it was a tip off of like, he is not what he seems. And so that made me go back to the very opening scene, where originally we never see who falls out of the window. We never see who had left the bag of visas behind, but we do see the woman who ends up being the assassin take off with the bag. And at that point, I thought, oh, J.K. Simmons' character is the one who fell out of the window and got away, and she's going to bring that bag to him. Next time we see J.K. Simmons' character come through the door, he's got something that looks very much like that bag, and yet he's trying to stop this assassin. So going all the way to the end and finding out he's a liar, I'm like, oh, maybe he and the assassin woman are working together.
Interesting. I do love that adrift feeling of not quite having, and we've talked about this in other programs. I like thinking that I have the world figured out and then having everything thrown out from underneath me. But as long as I can get back to that boots on the ground feeling again with the new set of rules, as we experienced with Stranger Things and some other shows as well.
All right, gentlemen, shall we move on to Deadwood then?
Tom, you're not going to like it.
I'm not going to like what?
What I have to say about this episode.
Okay, well, you're not going to like the one thing I have to say either, because it's very pedantic.
Oh, what is it?
P.T. Farman says monkey's uncle. Monkey's uncle is a phrase that originated in the Scopes monkey trial, which happens in the 20th century.
Oh. You know what? I like that very much. That's a very good.
Like, it really jumped out when he said, "Oh, monkey's uncle." I'm like, wait a minute, and then I immediately looked it up because I'm like, pretty sure I know where that came from, and he would be very odd, let's say, for him to be saying that.
That is great. I'm sure a lot of noise, even a monkey in a typewriter could be right eventually.
Yeah, so. Right. I mean, maybe it's just his own little phrase that him and Deadwood said. I don't know.
Can I state flatly and for the record that the entire Raylan and the he's going to be Raylan. Sorry, okay. Raylan and the Indian scene was garbage. It was all garbage. It was bad. It was. The sound design was excellent because it sounded like meat squishing beneath a rock, but it made no sense why the hootin' and hollerin' Indian had to gloat in front of him before he was killed. And,
they explain that later in the show.
Yes, they say some words that is supposed to make me be okay with how painfully dumb all of that looked. It's a bad 1/3 of the episode. It is the worst 1/3 of Deadwood I've seen to date.
Is it actually a third? It didn't feel like it was that long.
I mean, there's like the main story is dealing with the plague in Deadwood, right?
Yeah.
And then one side story is you have what, Seth? That's his name. Getting killed dead to rights, and then magically squishing the brains of the world's most incompetent Indian native. And then an argument over whether or not they set him up on a dais looking west towards the sun and present his all of that.
Oh, right. So you didn't like any of that.
Yeah, all that boring as hell, unrelated to anything, developed nothing. You remember on the old Star Trek, the original series, they would have tubes and they would have them labeled GNDN. That stood for, the in joke was GNDN was for goes nowhere, does nothing. That was that entire third of this episode, GNDN.
I mean, I don't agree that it did nothing, but if you hated it as much as you did, then of course it did nothing because you hated it, right? And so you didn't get anything out of it. I think it was meant to feed into a future narrative, because we've had this sort of thing on simmer in the background about what the natives are doing around, including the girl, them being blamed for killing her family, even though we know they didn't. So I think it was supposed to show the dangers out there and probably turn Seth Bullock into somebody who's not going to be okay with other native encounters, possibly. So I think it does something. I hear loud and clear that you're like, don't care, didn't matter, didn't need it to do that.
I can imagine. Let me put it this way. Actually, let's do this. You've seen Lonesome Dove, right?
No.
You've not seen Lonesome Dove?
No, man, I haven't.
Oh,
don't
Tom.
act like I've committed a sin.
Tom, this is wonderful.
No, it's not. I hate it when you do this.
I now know what we're going to do after Deadwood.
We're not. We're not going to just continue to watch freaking Westerns.
You're going to love it. There's a
I don't want to watch it.
There's a similar... Everybody write Tom if you say otherwise.
I don't care if it's good. That's not the point. There's all kinds of good things out there.
Okay, so my point is there is a similar exchange between a cowboy and an Indian that I think was a lot more believable, that I enjoyed a lot more. Enough. And so I had a footing to compare it to, and this one seemed a little bit cartoonish for my tastes, and I agree.
No, and I get the cartoonish aspect of it. I didn't love that scene. I sort of had to forgive it and be like, okay, well, we're showing why Seth doesn't catch Jack McCall, and we're showing a run-in that may play into something later. But I'm not going to argue that it was great or that we couldn't have lived without it.
However, let's talk about them all getting together, talking about the plague. I enjoyed Doc talking to Calamity Jane, basically saying like, hey, look, just... Yes, you can drink. Just do it afterwards. Let's do some good. Like
do it like I do after work.
Yeah, Doc might be even more interesting than Al Swearingen, because Al Swearingen is he gets the world, but he's also of the world, whereas Doc is outside of it as a medicine man, as he's almost a holy figure in this that's able to drift outside of the politics and just do the life-saving stuff that he wants to do. And I love,
as long as he doesn't bother with the politics, they're not going to bother him.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And we see him say, I love this because we see him set that line of like, I will not say anything up until this point, at which point you've crossed into my territory and I will.
Yeah. Also, we have that moment where, forgive me, all the names are still loosey-goosey, but the competitors to the gem who have craps, the one chick wants to not clean out the guy with crooked dice, but then the guy in charge does, and all of that stuff. Interesting dynamic with all that. I should really learn all the characters' names.
I mean, one of these days. One of them was Wild Bill Hickok, but then they killed him. So what are we supposed to do? They keep throwing new characters at
Just give up. Nobody has names. Mustache McTallface. That's
well, he's the guy who plays a bad guy on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's a little long to refer to him that way, I suppose. But
yeah. But I outside of that, I did enjoy this episode. It ended on a very soft note. There was no big twist, no big what's next or whatever. Just sort of seemed like it ended with this vibe of
Cy Tolliver.
That's the one. This episode, actually, I kind of like that it ended with, well, we knocked that disaster out. Everything's great in Deadwood. Because, again, you want to have that moment of kind of, well, at least, okay, everything's kind of okay. I've got my footing here.
Well, and what ties into that is A.W. Merrick, because I'm looking at the IMDb page, the newspaper guy, is less competent at being outside of it all like Doc, right? He wants to be like, see, like Doc, I'm a journalist. I'm outside of all this politics. But instead, because it's journalism and not medicine, the Doc can say, are you a doctor? No. Then stay the hell out of it. Merrick is like, yeah, okay, you can all help me write the story. It just gets frustrated with it. And they all feel like, okay, we've published the story that tells people that we've sent people. Tell them they're on their way back with the cure, so everything's fine. And yet, really what you're seeing is bodies building up in these tents.
Yeah, well, and specifically, I think that's a really good observation because it means Merrick is somebody who is seduced by the idea of public standing in a way that Doc is not. Doc knows, like the witch doctor, he knows he will never be part of the tribe. He will be outside and above the tribe, whereas Merrick wants to be of the tribe. He... You even see, is this the same episode you see him commenting like, well, I have not tried whiskey before, but I do believe I understand the appeal thereof.
Oh, yeah, I think, well, that might have been the trial, though. But yeah, He does that in Swearingen's place, right?
Right, but we see him wanting very badly, oh, this is fun, rethinking everything through the lens of archetypes, because you definitely have the witch doctor and the stranger and the hero and
he should be the bard.
Yes.
He kind of wants to be a warrior.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm going to have to rethink all of Deadwood. But anyway, still enjoying Deadwood. Speaking of which, you want to do a little bit of triage?
Oh, right. Yeah. In relation to Deadwood, we got an email that said, greetings, gentlemen. In your Spoiler in Time Deadwood segment, Tom mentioned the current day cemetery in Deadwood. I figured you guys would appreciate a little on-the-scene reporting, so I sent you some photos from my trip there about 10 years ago. I'd love to go back to this town. That area of the Black Hills is absolutely gorgeous. And he's got Calamity Jane's grave, Wild Bill Hickok's grave, Seth Bullock's grave, Preacher Smith's grave. Like,
oh my gosh,
they're all there. There's
Gem.
a Gem Steakhouse. Like I mentioned, Seth Bullock's hotel is there as well.
Okay, you realize we're going to make this a big thing in our mind, and we're going to get there, and it'll be just a tourist trap for us. But if we make this an event and a bunch of people came at the same time, that could be pretty fun. We could all gamble and play craps and cards.
And we could set up a Wildcat podcast. No, we didn't ask permission because there's no laws in Deadwood.
I'll smuggle in a 1 watt illegal pirate radio transmitter.
Yeah, no, I love this idea. I totally want to go to Deadwood.
Okay, all right. We got time to figure it out, but it would be what, right before the summer?
Yeah, I mean, we should probably finish our watch sometime at the end of August, maybe first week of September. My calculations were a little fuzzy, but yeah. So somewhere late summer when it's super hot in South Dakota would be perfect.
That'll be great.
All right, folks. Well, thank you for joining us and supporting us on Patreon. Spoiler in Time is our premier patron show. You get it first. And we have a plan to make it even easier to access the back catalog based on TV titles if we get to 1,850 people or dollars. So thank you to those of you who support us. If you can give a little extra, great, or at least convince someone else to throw $1 our way. We appreciate it. Patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Thank you, guys.
We love you.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.